welcome. I'm glad you're joining me. In today's video, we are going to step up the stencil game. And I'm starting up this video with this new stencil, and this is called the Holly and Berries stencil, which is a three-part stencil. You can see you can just build the holly berry background. I have actually gone ahead and aligned them, and then I have numbered them 1, 2, 3. Actually, when you do it this way, it makes it easier for you to every time stencil in that same order, and you don't have to be fiddling with the placement. And here I've gone ahead and chosen 4 different color fuse inks for the stenciling. So the first part of this is I'm just going to do a simple stencil. So I'm just adding a little bit of tape at the bottom so my cardstock doesn't move, and I'm using a white cardstock, and I have gone ahead and placed the first part of this stencil, and then I'm going to stencil it with the color fuse ink just normally that we would do with the stencils that we have. As I said, we are going to talk about stepping up these stencils to the next level. We don't necessarily have to look at the stencil only in one particular way. We can actually modify stencils to different forms. And here I'm just adding some darker green to give some shading. And don't worry about the splotchiness of the ink because it's all going to, this ink really smooths out very well. And for the steps that we're going to do additionally, none of those would be visible. And I'm taking the second part of the stencil for the berries, and I'm going to add the red ink that I have chosen for the berries. And here you can see I'm just adding that color, and the same way I'm also going to add a darker shade of the red for some extra added shadowing. And because these stencils, I have numbered them, you can see the 2 up there, and that shows me that this is the second part of the stencil, and I have to place it only, so the 2 is facing towards me, so I know that is the right side as well. So that's the reason why it makes it so easy. I am going to skip the third part of the stencil. And now I'm going to take another cardstock. This is kind of a minty green blue kind of cardstock, and I'm going to do the same thing on this as well. Just do a normal stenciling using the inks that we used for the white. So here again I am doing that. Now keep in mind, here you can see, before I say anything else, you can see I've started with the second part of the stencil, and the reason for that is because now that I've numbered them, I know exactly where I can position the next one. So I don't really even have to go in the order because of that number system that I have made for me. It's just a small hack to make stenciling much easier if you have 2 or 3 parts kind of a stencil. And I'm doing the same thing. Also keep in mind, when you use the same colors on a different colored cardstock, in this case the mint green cardstock, the green and the red is going to show differently because of the undertone of that cardstock. You can see the 2 different shades, and that's just beautiful. So you can really use these stencils and colors and different cardstocks to make it look differently. So here we go. Now we're going to step up these stencils. So for the first one that I did on the white cardstock, I'm going ahead and using a black fine multi-liner pen, and I'm going to line these stencils exactly where the edge of the leaf and the holly berry is. You can see here, that's what I'm doing. I'm just adding that extra veins, and for the berries I'm going to do the same thing, go around it and add that little dot thingy on the top to create the place where the berries grow at the stem. I don't know what you call that. Anyway, and once I'm done with that, I am just going to keep this aside, and I'm going to do with the second one. And for the second one here, I'm using a jelly roll pen, and this time actually I'm not going exactly to the edge. I'm not matching the pen to the edge of the leaf or the berries. You can see I'm going offsetting it a bit, and I'm following the pattern, but I'm creating a holly leaf a little offset to the actual stenciled holly leaf, if that makes sense. You can see here I'm doing it again, and that creates a foreshadow for that white piece, and it really adds more because we're going to add a lot more to these pieces, and you will see eventually. And I'm going to do this once more, and for the berry as well, I'm going to offset the white a bit more from the berry, so I'm not drawing it exactly on the berry. And you can see we're just stepping up these simple stencils to the next level. And I'm going to add some white dots all over this cardstock just to create that wintry feel. And you can see how that entire simple stencil has now completely gone to a different style. We've created a very beautiful busy background which is so Christmassy, so wintry. And now for this one, we go back to the first one, and as I said, we're going to step it up. This time I'm going to cut every berry and every holly leaf. Now you can cut it two ways. Either you can cut it right to the edge of the black line, just like what I'm doing here, and then go with the black pen and shade the edges so that it looks like you cut it really, really perfectly. Or you can take another holly berry, I'm going to show you another leaf here, and you can cut it leaving a white edge. Whatever is easy for you, but I can promise you cutting these leaves and berries are extremely easy. And you can see there, and I've gone ahead and done for the entire sheet. Ignore the sheet that is on the left side because I did it for another sheet and I had it previously cut. I also want to add a little bit of an extra to this blue paper cardstock here, and I'm just adding shading. I've taken an aqua color, a little darker shade of that cardstock, and I've added some shade, and you can see now it feels like the holly leaves and the berries are popping up the paper just because we added that shade to one side of the leaf and the berries. I'm also going to add some white pigment ink to the edges of this cardstock. Again, as I said, we're giving it that wintry feel, the beautiful Christmassy wintry feel. So in order to do that, I've taken this white pigment ink and I'm just shading the edges, and it has that little vignette feel on the edges, and it just looks so beautiful. You can see how pretty that looks, and I'm going to keep it aside. And now for the third step, kind of stepping up, we are actually going to use this as the background for our card. So here I'm taking the same stencil again, and you can see I'm layering it the way I wanted to. And also I've taken a craft cardstock this time. And this time I'm going with modeling paste. And I'm going to add this modeling paste through the stencil. You can find modeling paste on Amazon. Even if you go to your local Michael's store, you can find modeling paste in their paint section, or Hobby Lobby, any of those hobby shops also. So I'm just using that, and when you go to the next step, you really need to dry this piece. So I'm going to keep it aside to dry. I had gone ahead earlier and done this before I started the video so we could have a piece ready, and you can see I've layered the berries in it, and the whole piece is now dry and ready for the next step. Now I want to add that snowy feel to it, so I'm just going to take some white gouache onto my acrylic block here, and I'm just going to dilute it with water, and I'm going to splatter that all over the background. And as I said, this particular card, this cardstock will be used as a background for a card. The blue one is actually the focal of the card, and you will see what I'm going to do with the first one. And here we go. The first one, I've taken this, and I'm going to take two different sizes of circle dies. Actually, I've taken three. So I'm going to take the middle one and the smaller one out of the three, and I'm going to place them to create a little frame. And you can see I've run it through the die cut machine here, but I'm going to keep the other two as is because now it's going to make it easier for me to die cut the next frame as well. So when I adhere them together to create a thicker frame, I know that they've been cut exactly the same way you can see here. And then I'm going to take the larger of the dies and the middle of the one that I used out of the three, and I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to create a larger frame using a gold cardstock, a gold glitter cardstock, and here you can see all I need is the frame. The third step is I'm going to take the one in the middle between the largest and the smallest. So the middle one I'm going to also die cut an acetate sheet, and you know where I'm going with this exactly. It is going to be a shaker card, and I'm going to place that same middle die, and I'm going to cut a circle right in the center of this peach cardstock. And I'm also adding this designer paper, which is also new release coming up July 24th. And I've taken this, I've chosen one of those sheets, and I've just gone ahead and put it as a backing for this cardstock. You can see how it's looking. Now I'm going to adhere that acetate to its coordinating circle frame. So I'm just going to lay some glue, and I'm going to adhere that acetate sheet to this to the circle. Sorry, you can see here, I know there is a little bit of glue on that acetate sheet. Do not worry, it will dry clear. Also, if it is not drying clear, you can definitely take a white a wet wipe and wipe it off. So I've just traced the circle onto that designer paper because I want to now adhere the remaining circle. So before I do that, I'm going to actually adhere these white circles together, as I said earlier, to create that thicker chipboard like, so it's kind of a lifted circle, so I can fill the well with the sequences that I need, if that makes sense. And I'm also going to add some foam tape around that circle. I don't want to go close to the circle, but I'm going to put it around the circle. I hope it's making sense. And I'm taking some gold sequins. Now this sequence that I've chosen is not really bright. It's a muted gold, and I wanted to go for that because I didn't want this sequence to take away from the focus of the card. I just wanted it to be a very subtle shaker. And now I've placed that acetate circle on top of it to make sure that the sequence is between the two, and it's kind of embedded in there. And now I'm going to place that circle cardstock, the cardstock that we cut with the circle die, and I'm going to place that on top of it, and you can see everything is so finished and fine. And now I'm going to add that gold circle around that, so all the edges look finished, so this doesn't look unfinished, the edge doesn't look finished. You can see how clean the whole thing looks, and the shaker looks so pretty. Now it's time to use those stencil pieces. Now what we've done is actually we've created our own little stamp. It almost looks like we've stamped. Oh, before that, I went ahead and cut this little reindeer from the new release again, which is called Dear Friend, and I've only taken the reindeer off of that wreath. And you can see where we're going with this. I'm just going to build a wreath around this reindeer using those pieces. So if one doesn't know what we have done, we've actually created a stamp out of the stencil, and we have broken down the stencil to create a totally different kind of card. I don't know if that's making sense, but I feel like you're just looking at the stencil in a totally different way rather than just using it in one form. And once I've done adhering all the berries, I am going to move on to the sentiment. And the sentiment is from the same Dear Friend stamp set. And I've stamped it on a red cardstock, but I've also split the sentiment into two just to give it some more, I wanted the spacing to be right, so I wanted the sentiment to be split. And I have added the foam tape to the additional card, because you remember we added foam tape on the top part of it, so we need to make sure that everything is flat. And here you can see the finished card. Now for the second one, where we're going to use the main card as our focal point, I've just gone ahead and added a sentiment to it and added some extra clear drops, and that was the finished card for that. Now let's move on to the third one, where we're using the same stencil as the background. And here I've taken this stamp from the new set called the This Christmas set, and I've chosen this particular sentiment, which looks like a little Christmas tree. So I'm going to cut around it to make it look like a Christmas tree. So I'm just drawing some lines to make the cut. And once I've drawn all those lines, I'm just going to use my trimmer and I'm going to cut them all. And you'll see here very soon, I will have a little sentiment which looks like a Christmas tree. And I'm almost done here. And then I will erase the pencil marks, and it's just clean and pretty. I really like this stamp set. It's beautiful. This particular sentiment is also very, very pretty. And all that's left to do is add this red tree. And here are some snowflakes left over from a previous project. I will link the video for that project if you have missed it in the description box below, so you can see how we use this snowflakes for the card. And then I've also added an additional sentiment at the bottom, which reads holiday blessing in a very dark gray cardstock. I really like the colors of white, red, and gray and black on a craft cardstock. They just add so much. They just work together very well. And then I'm going to add these snowflakes just around the tree and the sentiments, just to create again that wintry scene, the Christmassy feel of the card. I live in North Carolina, so I don't really get to see that beautiful snow, but if you're in any other part of the United States where it snows, you understand what I'm talking about. And I'm just going to add this sentiment, and then all it was left to do was to adhere this to a top folding note card, and I've gone ahead and added some clear droplets here as well. And now let's look at the 3 cards that we created. Here's the shaker card where we cut the stencil apart. Here is the second one where we created the stencil as the main focal, and the third one where we created it as a background. I hope you've learned a little bit of something to use these stencils a bit different and step up the stencil game. Hope you enjoyed this video. Subscribe to our channel, and I will see you next time. Until then, stay blissful. Bye bye.